There is one thing, just one, that every form of power loss you have ever experienced traces back to. Not 7 things, not 10 strategies you failed to practice, not a complex web of mistakes that required a graduate degree in psychology to untangle. One thing. Done wrong, it costs you every significant advantage you carry into every significant room you enter. Done right, it makes you the person the room cannot manage, cannot leverage, and cannot position against. And the thing itself is so simple that you will hear it and immediately recognize that it has been operating in your life for years without you knowing it had a name. The one thing is this: visible need. The moment the room sees what you need, the specific, observable, readable evidence of your dependency on a particular outcome, a particular person's approval, a particular relationship's continuation, a particular room's acceptance, you have handed the room the single most efficient control mechanism available in any human dynamic. Because need, once it is visible, becomes a handle. And a handle, once it is available, gets gripped by anyone whose interests are served by steering you in a direction you would not choose on your own. Machiavelli wrote something about this that has not aged a single day. He said, "A prince must never show necessity, because necessity, once visible, becomes the thing by which all subsequent interactions are governed." That is not political theory. That is the most precise description of what has been happening in your professional and personal life every time you let the room see what you needed from it. The room saw the need. The room gripped the handle. And the room steered. Not always maliciously, not always consciously, but consistently. Because visible need produces leverage the way visible fear produces predation. It is automatic. It is instinctive. And it operates in every human dynamic regardless of the intentions of the people involved. Here is what the visible need has been building while you were too busy needing to notice the construction. It has been building a map. A complete, detailed, continuously updated map of exactly how to manage you. Every need you displayed was a data point. Every reaching you showed was a coordinate. Every accommodation you offered under the pressure of the needing was a route that the room filed for future use. The map is comprehensive now. The room knows what you need for approval, what you need from relationships, what you need from outcomes, how much you need to be right, how much you need to be liked, how much you need recognition, and how tightly you need to grip control. The room has the complete map, and the complete map is the complete manual, and the complete manual is complete control. Machiavelli spent 15 years watching men hand their maps to rooms that used them with devastating efficiency. He watched capable men get steered by less capable men who held their maps. He watched intelligent men get outmaneuvered by less intelligent men who had read their needs clearly enough to use the needs as the steering mechanism. And he documented, with the cold precision of a man who had learned the lesson personally, that the man who hands his map to the room has handed the room the only thing it needed to hold him permanently in whatever position serves its interests rather than his. This video shows you the 7 specific ways that visible need destroys your power. 7 manifestations of the one thing that, if you are doing any of them, are costing you more than every other mistake in your life combined. And by the end, you will not just understand the mechanism. You will have the specific tools to make the need invisible. Not by eliminating it. Need is human, and eliminating it is not possible. By managing the display. By choosing what the room sees and what it does not. By building the architecture that contains the need inside while projecting the composure outside. That architecture is the difference between the person who holds power and the person who keeps losing it without understanding why. Machiavelli observed, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Very few experience what you actually are." Right now, what you appear to be is someone who needs. And the needing, visible in your eyes and your pace and your accommodation, And your willingness to accept terms that are beneath what you deserve is the one thing that is costing you everything. Before I start, the last manifestation in this video is the one that makes every other correction permanent. Miss it, and the rest fades within a week. Stay to the very end. If you are ready to stop showing the room the one thing it needs to see in order to control you, comment the words, "I hide my need." Like this video because every like puts it in front of someone whose visible need is being used as the handle that steers every significant interaction they have. Subscribe and hit the notification bell. And drop your location and the time right now. This community is real, and right now it matters who is here. Manifestation 1. Your visible need for approval gives the room the power to manage you through the offering and withholding of the one thing you cannot stop reaching for. Let me tell you what visible approval need looks like from the outside, because you need to see it from the room's perspective before you can stop broadcasting it from yours. When you need approval visibly, when the room can see the specific quality of seeking in your eyes, in the speed of your agreement, in the eagerness of your accommodation, the room has received the most complete operating manual available for how to manage you. The manual says, this person's behavior can be controlled through the strategic deployment of approval. Offer the approval, and the person cooperates. Withhold the approval, and the person adjusts. The offering and the withholding do not need to be conscious or deliberate. They simply need to be available. And they are available the moment the need becomes visible. Machiavelli wrote, "It is much more secure to be feared than to be loved, because love is preserved by the link of obligation, which, owing to the baseness of men, is broken at every opportunity. But fear preserves you by a dread of punishment which never fails." Now hear the layer beneath that. The reason love is less secure than fear is that love, the approval, the warmth, the specific quality of being valued by the room, can be offered and withdrawn at the whim of the room. And the person who needs it is at the mercy of the whim. The person who does not need it is at the mercy of nothing. Because nothing is being offered or withdrawn that their stability depends on. Most people broadcast their approval need without knowing they are broadcasting. The broadcast is in the micro-adjustments, the slight shift in position that aligns with whatever the room's energy seems to favor. The quick agreement that arrives before the genuine evaluation has had time to complete. The specific quality of effort that goes into making sure the room is pleased with what you are providing. Each micro-adjustment is a data point, and the data points, accumulated across enough interactions, give the room the complete picture of what you need and exactly how to use the needing to produce the behavior the room wants from you. Here is the correction. The correction is not the elimination of the need. You are human. The need for approval exists. The correction is the elimination of the broadcast. The specific, deliberate, practiced discipline of feeling the need without displaying the need. Wanting the approval without reaching for the approval. Caring about how the room responds without letting the caring reach the surface in a form the room can read and use. Machiavelli would never display approval need. He would feel it. He would acknowledge it internally. And he would project the composure of someone whose need had already been met by themselves through their own honest assessment of their own work before they walked through the door. That projection, held with the composure that practice builds, is the thing that converts the approval seeker into the person the room pursues. Because the room, encountering someone who does not appear to need what the room is offering, begins the specific pursuit that visible need always prevents. Let me give you a specific scenario. You are presenting an idea to a group. The old version of you watches the faces as you speak. You track the nods. You register the frowns. You calibrate the next sentence based on what the tracking revealed. And the calibration, visible through the slight shifts in your pace, your emphasis, your specific quality of trying to land the idea in the place where the faces are most receptive, tells the room that your confidence in the idea depends on their reception of it. The idea itself may be excellent, but the visible need for the room to confirm the excellence has communicated something louder than the idea. The person presenting it does not yet trust their own assessment of its quality. The corrected version presents differently. The idea is delivered with the pace and the emphasis that your own evaluation dictated, not the room's faces. The faces still provide data. You still register the nods and the frowns, but the registering does not reach the surface as adjustment. The data is filed internally and processed after the delivery rather than during it. And the room, encountering an idea delivered by someone whose confidence in the idea does not fluctuate based on the room's micro-responses, processes the idea with more weight. Not because the idea changed, because the delivery said, "This person trusts what they built." And the room trusts the person who trusts their own work more than it trusts the person who is checking whether the room agrees before the delivery is even complete. Comment: I feel the need without broadcasting it. Manifestation 2. Your visible need for the relationship gives the other person the power to extract whatever they want through the threat of withdrawal. My friend, Machiavelli observed something about dependency in relationships that applies to your life with devastating accuracy. He said, "Men must be either pampered or crushed, because they will avenge themselves of slight injuries, but of severe ones they cannot." Now hear how this applies to your visible relationship need. When you need the relationship visibly, when the other person can see that their departure would destabilize you, that their withdrawal of warmth would unsettle you, that their continued presence is the condition for your emotional stability, you have given them the power to extract anything they want through the implied threat of the thing you fear most, their leaving. The extraction does not have to be dramatic. It does not have to be conscious. It operates through the specific, daily, micro-level calibration of what the other person offers, based on their awareness of how much you need what they are providing. The person who knows you cannot afford to lose them offers less. Not because they are cruel. Because the need has removed the incentive to offer more. The need says, "I will stay regardless." And regardless is the word that tells the other person their current level of investment is sufficient, because no amount of reduction will trigger the departure that the need is preventing. Here is the Machiavelli contrast. Most people increase their visible investment when they feel a relationship slipping. They hold tighter. They accommodate more. They make the need more visible in the hope that the visibility will communicate the depth of the caring that should inspire the other person to stay. Machiavelli would do the exact opposite. He would reduce the visibility of the need, not the need itself. The visibility. He would carry himself with the composed, settled, internally grounded quality of someone whose stability does not depend on this particular relationship's continuation. And the other person, encountering that composure, encountering the specific quality of someone who would be okay if this ended, would begin the recalculation that visible need always prevents. The recalculation of what they need to offer in order to keep someone whose staying is not guaranteed. Here is a specific practice. Identify the relationship in your life where your need is most visible. The one where the other person knows, through your behavior, your accommodation, your specific quality of always available warmth, that you cannot afford to lose them. For 1 month, practice containment, not withdrawal, containment. Feel the need, acknowledge the need internally, and project the composure of someone whose stability is built on multiple foundations rather than on this single one. The containment does not reduce the caring, it reduces the broadcast. And the reduced broadcast changes how the other person calculates what they need to offer to maintain the dynamic. Let me tell you something about what happens when the containment holds for 30 days. The other person's behavior begins to shift, not dramatically, subtly. The subtle shift looks like this. They begin initiating more, reaching out first, offering without being asked, asking questions about your life with a quality of genuine interest that was absent when your constant availability was providing them with everything they needed without requiring anything from them in return. The shift is the recalculation made visible. The other person, sensing that your staying is no longer guaranteed, has begun the investment that the guarantee was preventing. Machiavelli would tell you, the prince whose loyalty is guaranteed is the prince whose loyalty is never rewarded. And the prince whose loyalty appears conditional is the prince whose loyalty is actively pursued. You are not creating artificiality. You are removing the artificial guarantee that your visible need was constructing. And the removal of the artificial guarantee reveals the genuine relationship underneath. What the guarantee was covering was not intimacy, it was complacency. And complacency, removed through the containment of visible need, gets replaced by something that the visible need was preventing: genuine mutual investment. Here is a Machiavelli proverb that makes this permanent. He wrote, "Whoever believes that great advancement and new benefits will cause great personages to forget old injuries is deceived." Apply this. Whoever believes that increasing the visibility of their need will cause the other person to increase their investment is equally deceived. The visible need does not produce investment. It produces the certainty that investment is unnecessary. Contain the need, and let the containment produce the uncertainty that makes the investment necessary. Comment, I contain the need, rather than broadcast it. Manifestation 3. Your visible need for the outcome makes you negotiate from desperation rather than from position. And desperation, in any negotiation, is the thing that produces the worst terms available. Machiavelli wrote, "A wise prince must always follow the paths beaten by great men and imitate those who have been supreme." The great men Machiavelli studied all shared one quality in every negotiation they entered. They appeared to need nothing from it. Not because they genuinely needed nothing, because the appearance of not needing changed the other party's calculation about what would be required to secure the deal. The prince who appeared to need the alliance was offered the weakest terms. The prince who appeared indifferent was offered the strongest. Same alliance, different perceived need, completely different terms. Here is what your visible need for the outcome costs you in every professional negotiation you enter. The other party reads the need before you have stated your position. They read it in how quickly you respond to their opening offer, in how eagerly you engage with their proposal, in the specific quality of forward-leaning energy that tells them you have arrived at this table needing something from it. And the reading governs the offering. They offer less. Not because less is fair, because the need told them less would be accepted. Most people negotiate from visible need because the need feels honest. They believe that showing how much the outcome matters demonstrates commitment and should inspire the other party to offer generously. Machiavelli would never show the need in a negotiation. He would project the specific quality of composed indifference, the energy of someone who has alternatives, who has options, who would be fine if this particular deal did not close because the next one would. That projection, whether or not the alternatives are as strong as the projection suggests, changes the other party's offering, because the offering is calibrated to the perceived need. And perceived indifference produces a higher offering than perceived desperation. Every time. Here is a specific practice. Before your next significant negotiation, for a salary, a contract, a professional arrangement, spend 3 minutes identifying your best alternative. Not your ideal outcome. Your best alternative if this negotiation fails entirely. What do you do next? Where do you go? What is the backup? Hold that alternative clearly in your mind as you enter the negotiation, because the alternative is the source of the composure. And the composure is the thing that changes the other party's offering from what your need would have accepted to what your indifference requires them to provide. Machiavelli would tell you, the man who enters a negotiation needing the outcome has already lost the negotiation before the first word is spoken. Because the needing is the floor. And the floor, once it is visible, is where the offering will land. Let me give you a specific example that makes this immediately real. You are interviewing for a position. You need the job. The rent is due. The savings are thinning. The pressure of the financial reality is producing a specific quality of need that, if it reaches the surface, will change how the hiring manager calibrates the offer. The hiring manager reads the need in how quickly you accept the interview time without negotiating, in how eagerly you respond to every question with the maximum enthusiasm available, in the specific quality of grateful energy that communicates this person needs this more than we need them. And the reading produces the offering. The offer comes in at the lower end of the range, not because the lower end is fair, because the need communicated that the lower end would be accepted. The contained version looks different. The financial pressure is identical. The need is identical. But the display is different. The interview time is accepted with warm composure rather than eager accommodation. The questions are answered with confident precision rather than enthusiastic overflow. The energy says, I am evaluating whether this opportunity matches what I bring rather than I need this opportunity to solve my current problem. Same candidate, same qualifications, same financial reality, different display, and the different display produces a different offer, because the offer is calibrated to the perceived need. And the perceived need, managed through containment, signals a person who has alternatives even when the alternatives are thinner than the composure suggests. Machiavelli would tell you something very direct about this. He would say, the man who appears to need nothing receives everything, not because the world is generous, because the world calibrates its offerings to the perceived scarcity of the recipient's alternatives. Appear to have many alternatives, and the world will offer what it takes to compete. Comment, I negotiate from position, never from need. Machiavelli made an observation that bridges the first three manifestations to the final four with perfect precision. He said, the first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. Apply this to visible need. The first method for estimating how controllable you are is to look at how many of these 7 needs are visible in how you carry yourself. The more needs that are visible, the more handles the room holds. And the more handles the room holds, the more completely the room can steer you without your ever feeling the steering. Because the steering does not feel like control. It feels like the natural response to the room's environment. But the environment was shaped by someone who holds your map. And the natural response to a shaped environment is the controlled response to the shaper's design. Manifestation 4. Your visible need to be right makes you defend positions you should abandon, and the defending costs you the flexibility that every form of genuine power requires. My friend, Machiavelli wrote something about this that will change how you relate to your own certainty. He said, whoever wishes to foresee the future must consult the past, for human events ever resemble those of preceding times. Apply this to your need to be right. The past shows you, if you are willing to look honestly, that the positions you defended most aggressively were not always the positions that deserved the defense. Sometimes the defense was correct, the position was right, and the defending was justified. But sometimes, more often than you want to admit, the defense was not about the position. It was about the need to be the person who was right, the need to protect the specific assessment of yourself as someone whose judgment does not fail. And that need, when it is visible, costs you the one thing that every form of power requires to remain effective: the ability to adjust when the conditions change. Most people defend positions because abandoning feels like admitting failure. Machiavelli would never confuse adjustment with failure. He would say, "The man who adjusts when the conditions change is the man who survives the change. The man who holds when the conditions require movement is the man who gets carried away by the change he was too proud to respond to." Adjustment is not failure. It is the most intelligent response to a reality that has shifted beyond what the original position accounted for. Here is the correction. The next time you find yourself defending a position with more energy than the position warrants, when the defense has shifted from genuine conviction to the specific heat that the need to be right produces, pause. Ask yourself one question: am I defending this position because it is right? Or am I defending it because abandoning it would mean I was wrong? If the answer is the first, defend fully. If the answer is the second, the need to be right has become visible. And the visible need to be right is the one thing that costs you the flexibility, the adaptability, and the strategic mobility that Machiavelli identified as the most essential qualities of anyone who holds genuine power. Let me give you a specific scenario. You made a recommendation at work 3 months ago. The recommendation was implemented. The results have been mixed. Some aspects worked, others did not. And now, in a review meeting, someone is questioning the recommendation. Your need to be right fires immediately. The defense begins building in your chest. The arguments start forming. The evidence that supports your original recommendation starts assembling itself in your mind with the speed and the urgency that the need to be right always produces. Here is what the need to be right costs you in that moment. If you defend, if you spend the meeting building the case that the recommendation was correct despite the mixed results, you have communicated two things. First, that you are more invested in being right than in the outcome being good. Second, that your judgment is not something you are willing to revisit, even when the evidence suggests the revisiting is warranted. Both communications damage your positioning more than the original recommendation's mixed results ever could. Machiavelli would do something different. He would acknowledge the mixed results without defending the original recommendation. He would say something like, "The results show us what worked and what needs adjustment. Here is what I would recommend now, based on what we have learned." That response does not defend. It does not abandon. It adjusts. And the adjustment communicates the most powerful quality available in any professional environment. The quality of someone whose intelligence is not threatened by new information, but improved by it. Machiavelli wrote, "The wise man ought always to follow the paths beaten by great men." The great men he studied were not the men who were always right. They were the men who adjusted fastest when they were wrong. Because fast adjustment is the evidence of intelligence that is not contaminated by the need to protect its own previous assessments. Comment: I release what no longer deserves my defense. Manifestation 5. Your visible need to be liked makes you lower standards you should hold. And lowered standards are the fastest path to the specific quality of being taken for granted that you have been experiencing. Machiavelli observed, "There is no avoiding what the future holds, but a prudent man can prepare for it." The future holds the specific moment where your need to be liked will be tested by a situation that requires you to be respected rather than liked. And the test, when it arrives, will produce one of two outcomes. Either the need to be liked wins and the standard gets lowered, or the standard wins and the need to be liked gets contained. Every time the need to be liked wins, the room files the outcome as evidence that your standards are negotiable. And negotiable standards are standards that the room pushes against with increasing frequency and decreasing respect. Here is the mechanism in its simplest form. When you lower a standard to maintain someone's liking, when you accommodate something you should have refused, agree with something you should have challenged, accept terms you should have declined, you have communicated to the room that your standards are priced at the cost of your social comfort. And the room, knowing the price, pays it. Every time. With the specific quality of casual confidence that comes from knowing that the standard will yield under sufficient social pressure. Your standards have become a variable, and variables get negotiated downward by anyone who benefits from the negotiation. Machiavelli would never negotiate his standards for liking. He would hold the standard with the warm, non-aggressive, entirely non-hostile composure of someone who values the relationship enough to maintain the terms that make the relationship respectful rather than merely comfortable, because comfortable relationships that lack respect erode, and respectful relationships that lack comfort improve. The first outcome is always worse than the second, because erosion is permanent and discomfort is temporary. Let me tell you what happens over 60 days of holding standards rather than lowering them for liking. In the first 2 weeks, the discomfort is real. The people who are accustomed to your accommodation push back. They express displeasure, not always directly, sometimes through the specific quality of cooling that tells you the accommodation you used to provide is being missed. The cooling feels like loss. Your nervous system processes the cooling as evidence that you are doing something wrong. That processing is the need to be liked trying to reassert itself. Hold through it. By the end of the first month, the cooling has been replaced by something unexpected. The people who stayed, who adjusted to the standards rather than withdrawing from them, are treating you differently. The treatment has a quality to it that the accommodation never produced. The quality of consideration. They think before they ask. They evaluate before they assume. They bring a specific care to the interaction that was absent when the interaction was governed by the certainty that you would accommodate whatever they brought. That care is respect. And respect, produced through held standards, is worth more than any amount of liking produced through lowered ones. Machiavelli wrote, "A prince ought to show himself a patron of ability and should honor those who excel in every art." Apply this to your standards. You ought to honor your own standards the way the prince honors excellence, because your standards are the expression of your excellence. And excellence that is honored by the person who holds it is excellence that the room eventually honors as well. Comment: I choose respect over comfort. Before I move to the final 2 manifestations, I want to be direct. These last 2 are where the one thing goes from costing you in specific interactions to costing you your entire positioning. Subscribe right now. Hit the notification bell. Stay. Manifestation 6. Your visible need for recognition makes you perform rather than produce. And performance, unlike production, exhausts itself the moment the audience looks away. Machiavelli wrote, "Men in general judge more by the eye than by the hand, because it belongs to everybody to see you, to few to come in touch with you." Now hear the trap inside that observation. The trap is that the person who needs recognition optimizes for the eye, for what is seen, for what the room notices. And the optimization for the seen produces performance, the visible display of effort, of capability, of the specific quality that the person believes the room is looking for. The performance is exhausting. It requires continuous energy because it is being sustained for an audience. And the moment the audience looks away, the moment the room's attention shifts to something else, the performance collapses because the fuel source has been removed. Production is different. Production does not require an audience. It requires only the specific, internal, quietly sustained commitment to excellence that continues whether the room is watching or not. The person who produces is building. The person who performs is displaying. And building, because it happens regardless of the audience, accumulates in a way that performing cannot. The building produces results. The performing produces attention. And results, accumulated across time, outlast every moment of attention that performing ever generated. Here is the Machiavelli contrast. Most people who need recognition choose performance because the recognition arrives faster. The display produces the immediate feedback that the need is reaching for. Machiavelli would never choose the fast feedback of performance over the accumulated weight of production. He would produce, in silence, without the commentary that performance requires. And the results, arriving from someone the room was not watching, landing with the specific weight of something that was built without an audience, would produce a quality of recognition that performing could never match. Because the recognition earned through results is the recognition that says this person produces whether we are watching or not. And that specific quality of recognition, the recognition of someone whose excellence is not contingent on attention, is the most powerful form of professional positioning available. Here is your practice. For 1 month, stop performing. Not stop working. Stop performing. Stop the commentary about the work. Stop the visibility management around the work. Stop the specific behaviors that ensure the room knows what you are producing while you are producing it. Just produce, and let the results arrive in the room without your narration. And notice how the recognition, when it arrives on its own timeline rather than on your performance's timeline, carries a different quality, a heavier quality, the quality of something that the room discovered rather than something it was shown. Let me tell you what happens when you stop performing and start producing. The first week is uncomfortable. The silence around the work, the absence of the commentary that used to ensure the room noticed, feels like the work is being buried, like the quality is going unseen, like the effort that you put into the production is being wasted because the room is not being directed to notice it. That discomfort is the need for recognition trying to reassert itself. Hold through it. By the end of the month, the results have begun to arrive in the room on their own. Not because you pointed, because quality, accumulated consistently without narration, eventually becomes visible through its own weight. The room discovers it. And the discovery, because it was the room's own act of noticing, rather than your act of directing the noticing, carries a credibility that pointed at work can never match. The room says, this person has been building something significant, and they did not need us to validate the building. That assessment, formed by the room through its own observation, rather than received through your advocacy, is the most valuable professional reputation available. Machiavelli said, "The wise man does in the beginning what the fool does in the end." The wise person produces in silence at the beginning and receives the recognition at the end. The fool performs for recognition at the beginning and discovers at the end that the recognition produced by performance was hollow compared to the recognition produced by results. Comment: I produce without performing. Manifestation 7. Your visible need for control makes you grip tighter when you should be holding looser. And the gripping costs you the one thing that control was supposed to provide: stability. This is the last manifestation. This is the one that makes every other correction permanent. And it is the deepest manifestation of visible need, because the need for control is the need that contains all the others. The need for approval is the need to control how you are perceived. The need for the relationship is the need to control whether the person stays. The need for the outcome is the need to control what happens next. The need to be right is the need to control the narrative. The need to be liked is the need to control the room's emotional response to you. The need for recognition is the need to control the audience's attention. Every need in this video is a specific version of the same underlying need: the need for control. And the need for control, when it is visible, is the one thing that destroys every form of genuine power. Machiavelli understood this at the deepest level any political thinker has ever reached. He wrote, "Fortune is a woman, and if you wish to master her, you must strike and beat her." Now hear that the way it was intended, not as violence, but as boldness. And hear what it says about control. You cannot control fortune. You cannot control circumstances. You cannot control other people's decisions, other people's feelings, other people's behavior. The attempt to control what cannot be controlled produces the specific, visible, readable grip that tells the room you are afraid. Afraid of what happens if the control slips. Afraid of what the room does when the grip loosens. Afraid of the specific uncertainty that loosening would introduce into a dynamic you have been managing with white-knuckle intensity. Here is the deepest correction in this entire video. Loosen, not abandon. Loosen. Replace the grip with the hold. The grip is tight, anxious, visible, and exhausting. The hold is firm, composed, invisible, and sustainable. The grip says, I am afraid of what happens if I let go. The hold says, I am present and engaged, and I trust that what I have built will sustain itself without my continuous management. The grip is the visible need for control. The hold is the invisible architecture of genuine confidence. And the room, which can feel the difference between the grip and the hold, the way it can feel the difference between anxiety and composure, responds to the hold with the respect that the grip was consuming itself trying to extract. Machiavelli would never grip, he would hold. With the settled, composed, entirely non-anxious quality of someone who understood that genuine power is not the control of outcomes, but the capacity to respond to any outcome with composure. That capacity, the capacity to meet whatever arrives without the visible destabilization that the need for control produces when the control slips, is the one thing that the gripping was preventing from being built. Because the gripping was consuming the energy that the capacity required. And the capacity, once the gripping stops and the energy becomes available, builds itself with a speed that the gripping person could never have predicted. Because the gripping was the thing that was in the way. Machiavelli would say to you as the final thing in this video, the man who grips has told the room what he is afraid of losing. And what the room knows you are afraid of losing is the thing the room can threaten you with. Loosen the grip, hold the composure, and let the room discover that there is nothing you are afraid of losing enough to let the fear govern how you move through the space. That discovery, made by the room through the specific observation of someone whose holding is composed rather than anxious, is the moment the power arrives. Not the power you were gripping for. The power that the gripping was preventing. Let me tell you what the loosening looks like in practice, because the loosening is the most difficult correction in this entire video, and you need the specific instruction. Tomorrow, identify one area of your life where you are gripping. One dynamic where your visible need for control is producing the white-knuckle management that is exhausting you while failing to produce the stability you are gripping for. And loosen one element, not the whole grip. One element. Let one thing that you have been managing go unmanaged for one day, and observe what happens. In most cases, the unmanaged thing manages itself. The situation you are controlling does not collapse when the control is removed. It adjusts. It finds its own equilibrium. It produces an outcome that may not be identical to the outcome your control would have produced, but that arrived without the cost that your control was extracting. And the observation of that, the specific, felt, experiential evidence that the world does not collapse when you loosen the grip on one piece of it, is the evidence that weakens the need for control at its source. Because the need for control is built on the belief that your control is the thing holding everything together. And the evidence that the uncontrolled thing held together on its own is the evidence that the belief was wrong. Accumulate enough of that evidence through enough days of loosening one element at a time, and the grip converts into the hold. Not through willpower, through evidence. The evidence that the holding is sufficient, that the gripping was excessive, that the energy you were spending on the grip is now available for the thing that genuine power actually requires. the capacity to respond to whatever arrives with the composure of someone who was never afraid of what would happen if they let go. Machiavelli wrote one final proverb that closes this entire video. He said, "There is nothing more difficult to plan, more uncertain of success, nor more dangerous to manage than the creation of a new order of things." The new order you are creating, the order where the need is contained rather than broadcast, where the composure replaces the grip, where the room sees the settled version rather than the seeking version, is difficult. It is uncertain. And it is dangerous to manage. But the man who manages it has built the one thing that makes every other form of power available, the invisible architecture of someone whose needs, however real, however human, however genuinely present, are held inside rather than displayed outside. That architecture is the one thing done right. And the one thing done right is the thing that gives you back every piece of power that the one thing done wrong has been taking. Comment I hold with composure rather than grip with fear. My friend, let me close this out by returning to the one thing that opened this video. Visible need. That is all. That is the entire mechanism. Every form of power loss you have ever experienced, every time the room outmaneuvered you, every time the relationship extracted more than it returned, every time the negotiation produced terms you should have refused, every time the defense consumed energy the adjustment would have saved, traces back to the moment when the room saw what you needed. And the seeing was the gripping, and the gripping was the losing. Machiavelli spent his career documenting this in the language of political power. But the principle operates identically in every human dynamic from the boardroom to the bedroom. The person whose needs are visible is the person whose behavior is predictable. And predictable behavior is manageable behavior. And manageable behavior is the opposite of powerful behavior. Make the need invisible. Not by eliminating it, by containing it, by carrying the need inside the composure rather than displaying the need on the surface, by showing the room the settled, composed, internally grounded version of yourself, while the needing stays where the room cannot reach it, inside, acknowledged, felt, and genuinely held by the architecture that this video built. Machiavelli said one final thing that will stay with you. He wrote, "Where the willingness is great, the difficulties cannot be great. The willingness to contain what you have been broadcasting. The willingness to hold what you have been displaying. The willingness to show the room the composure rather than the need. That willingness is the one thing done right that gives you back everything the one thing done wrong has been costing you." Here is what the containment looks like starting tomorrow. One interaction where you feel the approval need fire and you hold the broadcast. One moment in a relationship where you contain the visibility of how much you need the person to stay. One negotiation where you project composure rather than desperation. One disagreement where you release the position rather than defend it past its usefulness. One interaction where you hold a standard rather than lower it for liking. One piece of work where you let the results speak without your narration. One dynamic where you loosen one element of the grip you have been maintaining. 7 containments. 7 moments of choosing the composure over the broadcast. 7 pieces of the map that the room was holding that you have now reclaimed. Each reclamation is small. Each one takes less than a minute of conscious effort. And each one installs a piece of the architecture that the visible need was preventing from being built. The architecture of someone who needs, because all humans need, but who carries the needing inside rather than displaying it outside. That architecture is the one thing done right. And the one thing done right changes everything. Like this video, if this is the first time the one thing has had a name and the naming changed how you see every significant dynamic you are currently inside. Share it with someone whose visible need is the handle the room has been using to steer them. And subscribe to this channel because the next video goes directly into the advanced daily practices that make the containment permanent and the composure structural rather than performed.